There is a $2.50 trick that keeps food cold for months. No power cord, no compressor, no monthly bill. And it was perfected thousands of years before electricity existed. Most of us have never questioned the refrigerator. It hums in the corner, we fill it up, and we trust it completely. But that trust has a hidden cost. The average fridge runs through $2,000 to $3,000 in electricity over 20 years. It breaks down, usually at the worst possible moment. And the instant the grid goes down, everything inside it starts to spoil. A summer storm, an ice event, a week without power. Gone. The meat, the produce, everything your family was counting on. What almost nobody thinks about is that this problem was already solved. It was solved in ancient Egypt and refined across centuries. It is still being used today by communities that never needed a plug to keep their food safe. The modern appliance industry has no reason to tell you any of this. But the science is real, the history is documented, and the methods work. Right now in a backyard, a basement, or even an apartment. So what is the one principle holding all of this together? It is simpler than you might expect. The earth, the water, and the air are already doing the work. We just stopped asking them to. Every method in this video shares a single foundation. Nature maintains stable temperatures without any help from us. Our only job is to position our food where that stability already exists. That is not folklore. That is thermodynamics. Start 4 feet below the surface of the ground. At that depth, soil temperature in most of North America holds between 50 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. It does not matter if it is 100 degrees above ground in July. It does not matter if January drops below zero. Down there, the temperature barely shifts. That is not an accident, and it is not magic. It is the Earth's thermal mass absorbing and averaging out every season, every storm, every heat wave. Penn State Extension research confirms that effective root cellars maintain temperatures between 32 and 40 degrees. Humidity must stay between 85 and 95%. You do not need concrete walls and a heavy door to get close to those numbers. You need soil depth. So why does a buried bucket work as well as it does? Because at 12 to 16 inches down, you are already borrowing enough of the Earth's coolness to slow bacterial growth dramatically. Here is the method. Buy a standard 5-gallon plastic bucket at any hardware store. $2 to $3. Dig a hole on the north side of your house in a shady spot. It should get as little direct sun as possible. The hole needs to be deep enough that the top of the bucket sits roughly level with the ground surface. That puts you at about 14 to 16 inches of depth. Set the bucket in and pack the soil firmly around the outside. No air gaps. Now layer your root vegetables inside. Carrots, beets, turnips, potatoes, and parsnips all store well this way. Between each layer, add damp sand or dry sawdust. This controls moisture and prevents any two pieces of produce from touching directly. Contact between vegetables accelerates rot. The sand slows it. Snap the lid on and pile a thick layer of straw on top for insulation. You are finished. Root vegetables stored this way stay firm and fresh for weeks. Many will last for months. Now here is where experienced gardeners make a mistake that costs them their entire harvest. What you store together matters as much as how you store it. Apples keep beautifully underground, 4 to 5 months for a good storage variety. But never store apples near potatoes. Apples release a gas called ethylene as they ripen. Ethylene is invisible and odorless. It acts as a chemical signal that tells surrounding produce to accelerate. Potatoes exposed to ethylene begin sprouting rapidly. Once that happens, a toxic compound called solanine starts forming. This occurs particularly around the eyes and any green patches. Solanine causes genuine illness. The Amish learned this not from a laboratory study, but from losing harvests and asking why. And the problem goes beyond potatoes. Ethylene from apples strips carrots of their natural sweetness and replaces it with a bitter, almost medicinal taste. Once that happens, those carrots are finished. Cooking cannot fix it. The solution is to keep apples in a separate buried container, at least 10 feet away from any other produce. Cabbage and turnips create a similar problem. Their odors penetrate other vegetables stored nearby, altering both flavor and smell. The Amish organize their underground storage, the way a pharmacist organizes a dispensary. Every category has its own space and its own container. The reason for that separation was earned across generations. If you cannot dig, or if you want more capacity, the buried chest freezer method takes this further. An old chest freezer you were planning to haul away is already built, with thick insulation and a tight sealing gasket. It is designed to hold stable temperatures. That engineering works in both directions. Buried with its lid just above soil level and surrounded by earth. At a constant 52 degrees, it becomes one of the most efficient, off-grid food storage systems available. Root vegetables, canned goods, and apples wrapped in burlap. All store well inside it. Dig the trench at a very slight angle so condensation drains to one end, rather than pooling around your food. Backfill the soil around the outside, and the earth does the rest. The total cost is an afternoon and a shovel. For those without a yard at all, the science shifts to evaporation. And this is where we arrive at the technique confirmed by MIT researchers and traced back over 4,000 years. It is called a zier pot. Two unglazed terracotta clay pots, one larger than the other, with a gap of about 2 inches between them. Plug any drainage holes with a cork or a dab of silicone. Set the smaller pot inside the larger one. Fill the gap completely with wet sand. Place your food inside the smaller pot and lay a damp cloth over the top. That is the entire device. But how does it actually keep food cold without electricity or ice? The mechanism is evaporative cooling. Water absorbed in the wet sand seeps slowly through the porous clay walls of the outer pot and evaporates into the surrounding air. Evaporation is not passive. It is an active energy transfer. As each molecule of water converts from liquid to vapor, it carries heat energy away with it. That heat is drawn from the inner pot. The physics are identical to what happens when sweat evaporates. From your skin on a breezy day, you feel cold because energy is leaving your body. The inner pot cools for the same reason. In hot, dry conditions, the interior temperature can drop 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit below the surrounding air. In arid climates like the American Southwest and the Great Plains, the zier pot can bring interior temperatures down to the upper 50s. Tomatoes that would spoil in 2 days on a kitchen counter will last up to 3 weeks inside one. Leafy greens stay crisp for a week or more. Peppers, eggplant, and okra all benefit significantly. The method works best when relative humidity is below 40%. But even in moderately humid climates, it provides a meaningful reduction. Keep it in a shady spot with airflow, a covered porch or an open shed. Re-wet the sand once or twice a day and replace the cloth when it dries. Monthly cost is a few gallons of water. The history of this device deserves a moment. Archaeological evidence places clay, cooling vessels in the Indus Valley at around 3,000 years before Christ. Ancient Egyptian frescoes dated to roughly 2500 BC show servants fanning water jars to speed evaporation. This was deliberate. They understood that moving air increased the rate of evaporation, and therefore increased the cooling effect. In 1995, a Nigerian schoolteacher named Muhammad Ba'aba reintroduced this ancient technology to farming communities across the Sahel region. The results were striking. Food waste dropped sharply. Farmers forced to sell everything at harvest because it would spoil could suddenly store produce for weeks and sell at better prices. MIT D-Lab conducted field research confirming the zier pot's effectiveness in low humidity environments. A device older than the Roman Empire, validated by one of the world's leading research universities. Every method covered here works on the same underlying principle. The earth below your feet is already cold. Water from depth is already cold. Evaporation is already drawing heat away from any surface it touches. Underground food storage, the buried bucket, the buried freezer, the zier pot. They are not hacks or novelty projects. They are the original technologies of food preservation. They were developed by people who paid close attention to how the natural world actually works. The Amish did not invent most of these methods. They inherited them, kept using them, and never handed their food security to a system that could fail in a storm. The average American household loses a full refrigerator of food every few years to a power outage. An Amish family in Holmes County, Ohio, does not. Not because they are living in the past, but because they positioned their food where cold already exists. You can do the same thing this weekend. A $2.50 bucket, a shady spot, and an afternoon of digging. Or 2 clay pots and a bag of sand. The knowledge was always there. It just needed someone to ask the earth for it again.